Hello, everybody, and welcome to our talk about being fabulous at 50 and beyond. We're having a series of conversations aimed at actually celebrating women as they get to midlife, because I don't know about you, but I'm fed up with society's view that thinks that women get to a certain age and then it's all downhill. And we've missed the boat and we're past it, because I'd say, certainly from my point of view, that couldn't be further from the truth. And actually everybody else I'm speaking to, it's the same thing. And that's most women I know, yes, you're going to get a bit older and get a few extra lines, maybe there's a few extra inches, but actually what we're also getting in spades is that whole load of extra experience. And I think as well, the whole, I don't care whether I'm meant to do that. I fancy doing it. I'm going to try. I don't care what people think. I think more and more we stop being held back by other people's opinions or maybe our own limiting beliefs. So this is a whole conversation, a series of conversations about celebrating women getting to that age. For anyone who doesn't know me, wondering who is she, why is she doing this? My name's Mary Waring. My company is Wealth for Women. I'm a financial advisor, a financial planner, and a certified women's coach. Now, I'm introducing a new program which is aimed at women 50, 55 plus, who are ready to leap into that next stage of life. They'd like to, but there's something holding them back. And that could be a bit of fear, just maybe they don't know what it is that they want to do. And that's where the coaching comes in. Could be concern about money. Can I afford to do that? Especially for someone who's going to cut down on their hours. And that's where financial planning comes in. But this is all about helping women jump into that next stage and be delighted about it, be really excited about it. For everyone registered on the call, I am going to ask you whether you'd like to hear more about that. If that's not for you, absolutely fine. Just sit back, listen to all the calls. We've got 5 of them, 1 a day for a week. They're all designed to be very helpful, give us hints and tips as to what we can do to improve things for ourselves as we're getting older and enjoy that time of our life. So let's get started. Let's jump right in. And today I'm talking to Kate Codrington, who's a menopause mentor, writes on menopause and women's health, and has obviously got a huge amount of information she can share with us. So Kate, welcome to you.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me. It's really lovely to be talking about how fabulous midlife is and all the wonderful things that we can explore and the wonderful ways of being we can explore in our 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s and hell, maybe even to 90s if our health holds that, you know.
And it's interesting that as I started looking at this, I was seeing more women out there like yourself being very positive, but there still needs to be so much more movement on that, doesn't there, to be getting the message out there. Do you know what? It's not downhill after 50 by any means.
It's just extraordinary the way that our general mainstream cultural belief system works with this. So if you look at the telly, whether you're looking at you know, terrestrial or movies or whatever, there's this kind of gap where you have teens and then everybody else looks around 35 and then you have Judi Dench.
True. Yes. What's happened to the ladies in the middle?
So that the 25-year-olds are looking 35 and so are the 65-year-old, and it's like, it's as though we have this terminal cultural blindness And we, as you know, women in our 50s, we know that this is nuts, but we also live within this culture. So we also, because we've been marinated in it, we're conditioned not to see the creativity and the vitality around us. So typically, and I watch myself with this because, you know, I'm like the most annoying Pollyanna about midlife creativity on the planet. People want to punch me. It's like, oh, will you stop that woman? This hurts so much. Will you stop her banging on about how wonderful it is? But still, if I'm sort of scanning a room, my eye will kind of slide over grey hair. And it's like, well, what is that about? What is that about? And it's because in this patriarchal culture, I have just been conditioned to see that as a loss, and a lack. But actually, once we reframe put our midlife goggles on and get the correct prescription, actually what we see is women in their 50s, like I'm specifically postmenopause, and I'll say more about that a bit later, starting new stuff. So starting pottery classes, jumping out of aeroplanes, climbing up mountains, having unsuitable sex, ditching their relationships that haven't been working, ditching things that drain them, whether they're friendships or jobs or family obligations as well, and really refocusing, you know, refocusing that energy on what feeds them and what is joyful for them. But somehow as a culture, we don't see it. You know, it's go into any cafe, go into any mid-morning yoga class or cafe, and it will be rammed full of women in their 50s laughing their heads off, and, you know, or being really engaged in conversation. But somehow we just don't. We just don't see it. So it's right in front of our eyes, hidden in plain sight.
Well, we need to change it. So you've referred to yourself as postmenopause, or been in your second spring, which I adore that title because of all the connotations of what's still to come. So explain that term, where it comes from, why you use it.
Sure. Yeah, this is kind of my piece. You say we're going to change it. This is kind of my piece of the puzzle to bring this into public consciousness. So if you think of our teen years, they would be spring. And they have qualities of going out and discovering who we are and what the world is about, and we go out and we fall flat on our faces and go, oop, ow, and then we do it again and go, oop, ow, you know, all that kind of thing. So it's a process of coming out into the world, and this continues and becomes more, what do I mean, more forceful kind of in our 30s. And there's this real desire to manifest. So that might be in business or activism or having a family, having children, probably all three. And even if any and all of those things haven't happened to you, and I was a late bloomer, so I didn't really get that really going until my 40s, we feel the pressure, you know, we feel this like, oh, we feel the pressure to manifest our spirit in the outside world. So this is 2 seasons of increasing manifestation and worldliness. And then as we come into our 40s and perimenopause, there's a switch into a more inward focus. So this is a natural balance, which is, there's no room for this in our world because we have to, you know, we have to keep on producing, we have to keep on going at 100 miles an hour, and there's no room to look after ourselves. But what our bodies are calling for and our spirits are calling for, and in my opinion, this is why a lot of the perimenopause difficulty comes from, is that we're not allowed, we do not have the space to slow down and become more reflective. And what happens, because we're becoming more permeable, psychically permeable in all kinds of ways, and more reflective, old patterns of emotional wounding and healing starts to emerge, to be completed. So, you know, in a straightforward mainstream view, it all goes to shit.
Right,
There's the judgment. You know, there's the judgment right there. But actually what's happening is we're being asked to slow down. We're being shown this is what happens when you give and give and give and give, as people in a female body often are educated to do all through your life, and you don't receive for yourself. You end up on the floor, depleted. And this process of inwardsness continues into the sort of deep menopause, where hopefully we are able to accept more of ourselves, more of our shadow, more of the parts that aren't celebrated in the outside world. So we have the season of sort of outward expansion and the seasons of autumn and winter are coming in. And then post-menopause, guess what? We get the second spring. So if we are allowed in our own way to rest enough and to come inwards and be, it's just like being super kind and super compassionate to ourselves, being our own very best friend in those difficult years, challenging years. Then we can emerge in second spring with these qualities of expansion and finding stuff out and going, well, if I wasn't that kind of person, then who am I? Is it like this? Oh no, ow. And there's a lot of what Darcy Steinker, the American feminist writer, talks about gender slippage. Women decide, who've been heterosexual all their lives, think, oh, sod it, I've had it with men. I am now lesbian or bisexual or gender fluid or something entirely, or I just don't know, and that's fine. There's this shift in identity that happens where we can explore, and then a second summer again where we're manifesting again in the world. And quite often you'll see, if you go to any Extinction Rebellion march or activism, and in my little community here, for example, we've just it's kind of run by women in second summer, to be honest. They're the people who do all the good stuff. And then we've just my friend Jane has just opened a plastic-free refillable shop in her second summer. And then as we move towards the end of our lives, there's a coming back in and a more reflective autumn and a quieter winter before we shuffle off and I don't know, whatever happens next.
So what would you say to someone listening in who's, well, I don't know about it, she's perimenopausal, she's having night sweats and aches and pain, and she thinks, well, it's okay about talking about second spring. I feel dreadful. What is the advice that she needs to slow down?
Well, I think we are talking more about menopause now. Davina McCall made that program that aired fairly recently. So there's more conversation, and this is just going to grow in the same way that we've lost a lot of menstrual shame in the last 5-10 years. The same will happen with menopause. So talking about it is a really good thing.
Yeah, there is a lot of shame about it, I think, isn't there? That you don't want to admit you're struggling because somehow that I don't know. That makes
and that's it. That's the thing. The thing that I would love people in that situation to know is that you're not broken.
Yeah.
That it's not your fault. You're not broken. It's because there's not space for you to rest. So my advice is to imagine what your best friend would say to you.
Okay.
And best friends don't say, you should just bloody stop having that Prosecco and eat cake and you should go on a run. Best friends say, you're doing really well. I really love you. I really think you should just let go of that toxic, whatever it is.
Yeah. Best friends also don't say, shut up and just get on with it and try harder. So, or one hopes they don't.
Yeah, and I don't know much about your background, but my background is, is with a white, fairly privileged Protestant family, and trying harder, buckling up, shut up, and getting on with it is what I was taught, and that doesn't work. So certainly being your own best friend, and finding pockets of rest where you can. So it's not always possible to, you know, to just ditch everything and everybody, because there are a lot of responsibilities around.
Yeah, and of course it's quite
slower.
Yeah, I was going to say quite tricky, because the woman, say, I don't know, mid to late 40s, she may have young children, maybe as well in quite a high pressurized job.
Mm.
It's just spinning a whole load of plates.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely
tough.
So talking about your feelings in a safe environment, and employing that compassion, whatever is most accessible to you. So it might be, you know, using your best friend, or an actual best friend, or a therapist, and it may be taking one breath. You know, show me the life where one breath in and one breath out is not possible. Okay. And yet it's really hard.
Yeah. And so as a menopause mentor, what sort of thing is it that you do?
I do quite a lot of this. I do quite a lot of banging on.
Yeah, no, but that is good, because over the last, I don't know, I'm just guessing 5 years, there has been more and more about menopause, isn't there? I think I'm going to guess 5 years. I've just made that number up, but you know, 5 years ago, if you were looking on the internet, I'm guessing you'd find nowhere near the sort of amount on menopause that you would. I doubt you'd find much about menopause at work. I doubt you'd find much in LinkedIn. Again, you know, LinkedIn now you can search, and there is going to be advice and help and everything on menopause, because all women go through it. So we should be talking about it, shouldn't we?
Yeah, if we're lucky, if we're really lucky, we get to do this.
Yeah.
It's a privilege, right? A corrective force. So really, to answer your question about what I do, I have, you know, I see one-to-one clients, I work with groups, workshops, all that jazz. And I think you could probably say that I hold space for people to hear themselves, to listen to their internal processes. Because part of what I mentioned earlier about autumn and winter, and part of what the slightly tricky side of there being more conversation about menopause is that we then kind of spin out into, oh, well, I must get an expert opinion to tell me what to do.
Yeah.
And menopause, the quality of menopause is about coming inwards and feeling what you know you need. And we know what we need. The problem is that we don't feel entitled to ask for it, or we don't feel able that we can have it. I mean, I'm sure that you know about the difficulty of asking for pay rises within industry.
Absolutely.
The difference between them. And it's the same here. We know what we need. We are fully aware of what we need and what we are able to do. But there's a whole load of difficulty that gets in the way. So I hold a space, I hold aside the difficulty so that people can really feel and connect with themselves to feel, yeah, that is really what I need.
Yeah. And so what are some of the sort of benefits that your clients have seen through either the one-to-one or the group work?
I think they like themselves better.
See, that's fantastic. And I know that sounds so glib almost, but actually that's major, isn't it?
Isn't that it's absolutely massive.
Yeah.
So for every bit of judgment that they can let go of, you know, and be softer around and a bit more spacious, then they have more choice about what they can do with their lives and what they can do with themselves. And
I suppose as well, being in that environment where it's safe to say, you know, if you're struggling, and have other people around you to support you, give you advice as to, you know, what they did to deal with their issues when they had them.
Yeah, there's nothing like, because we know because we're smart. We know, and we're smart, and we have Dr. Google. So we know what to expect. We know that we're going to be feeling difficult feelings and various physical stuff. You know, we kind of know this.
Yeah.
And we know that we're likely to feel lost and hopeless. But we also feel that we're failing, that we're doing it wrong, that we're the only person on the planet that feels like this. Both, you know, we believe two totally contradictory things. And when we come together in groups, and I would certainly say safe spaces, and spaces where you can sit and say how you feel without people telling you how to fix yourself, without people piling on the advice, unless that's what you want. You know, it's really important. Then there is a quality of, oh, okay, so I'm not alone. And this quality of feeling part of a movement, because there are, I wish I could remember figures, 15 million menopause and postmenopause women. Oh, I'm rubbish at figures, I can't remember. I'll look it up later. But you know, it's a huge quantity.
But it's enormous, whatever the number is.
It's enormous. It's a fifth of the population.
Yeah.
And yet the shame and the feelings of failing, because we've lived past 50, are so abiding that they keep us separated. You know, the shame keeps us separated and keeps us in suffering. But when we can loosen the shame, well, coming together loosens the shame, and that relieves the suffering. So women actually experience their symptoms as less severe when they are connected and share their feelings.
Wow. So how would you like to see things change around menopause in and I'm guessing, I don't know, 5-10 years time, I don't think it's going to be that long, is it, before there's some major changes happening?
Yeah. Well, first of all, the change is happening already. So just to give an example of that, I was talking to somebody who runs the menopause, the peer-led menopause organisation, the support group at Bristol City Council. And she was saying that they have an intranet message board, and they have people who come and speak, and you know, this and that, and there's a lot of support. The managers are educated so that people can talk to them about, the workers can talk to them about their symptoms and ask for different hours and what have you. And she said, since this menopause support group has been in place, the number of, now you'll have to help me with language, the number of complaints and the number of warnings, that kind of thing. How do you say that? Is that the right language? Has dramatically dropped.
Wow. Yeah.
Just by people able to communicate and being able to talk to their managers. So it's already happening.
Yeah.
It's already happening. So I would like to see state-sponsored menopause gap, please. I'll put that number 1 on my list.
Oh my goodness.
Yep.
Oh wow, that didn't even occur to me as something.
I'm going large.
Oh no, but that's large.
I'm large in it here.
Wow. So how long for?
Oh, I don't know. You know, anything would do. 6 months would be good.
Yeah.
Teenagers get, well, they don't anymore, but they used to get, if they were privileged enough, they used to get a gap year.
Yes.
Right. So a time to kind of knock the corners off and discover who they were. Yeah. And that's another liminal space where we're stopping becoming part of a family and moving out into the world. And you know, menopause is another liminal space where we have to explore inwardly.
Right.
So I would have a state-sponsored menopause gap. What else? What would you have? You tell me what your wish list is, and I'll have a think about it.
I don't know. I mean, mine, I'd say, is already happening, which is talking about it. I think if you thought maybe a few years ago there'd be a program about menopause on primetime TV, that seemed very unusual then. I think it's to get, I don't know what the answer is, but it's getting rid of the shame around menopause for the women who feel they're failing, if they're struggling for, for whatever reason, because, there are so many symptoms of menopause, perimenopause, aren't there? So many symptoms.
It's hard to separate it out from women's general lived experience, because so many of the problems can't become So many of the problems grow out of us giving too much.
Yeah.
Saying yes when we actually want to say no. And I think so much difficulty arises out of that. So I would kind of rewind it back into the education system.
Yeah.
So that girls are taught more thoroughly about consent, and boys.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
How can you tell from your body when you feel a yes or a no? Is this a yes? Is this a no?
Right.
How can you communicate that? And it's great to have practice sessions where you practice saying no. And
yeah.
So I would take it right back to that, I think. And then I bet there would be less symptoms, because we wouldn't arrive at 45 on the floor.
Actually, that's really interesting. And this has only just occurred to me, how much as well about, the whole negative impact of going through that is related to, this dreadful societal view that postmenopause, which is such a terrible term just on its own, I think.
We don't have to use it, ditch it.
No, absolutely. Second spring. And, it is that positive language. We don't have second spring as a common term. I mean, hopefully we will do.
We will do.
But I think postmenopause definitely sounds, you passed it, it's all over. And I think there is too much of society's view that, it's all downhill when you get to a certain age, which it's just not. For some people, maybe that is where they are. But no, for a lot of other women, it really is second spring. This is what I now plan to do. And actually, I've got all this time ahead of me to do it.
I think what I would change is I would have my magic wand and I would banish fear.
Yeah.
Bring the fear around it. And I think that, one of the most major hormone disruptors is stress.
Yeah.
And when we are fearful, it affects all of our systems. It affects our appetite. It affects our hormones, our sex hormones. It affects everything. It affects our body's capacity to heal. It affects our immune system.
Yeah.
It affects everything. So removing the fear quota would make everything better.
Oh.
And the other thing I would I like this. It's my shopping list.
I know, marvelous. Come on, what else?
It's like sort of permission to go shopping at Net-a-Porter without a price limit.
Okay, there's no credit limit here at all. Just whatever you want.
Okay. Well, in that case, Mary, what I'd like is menopause established as a rite of passage.
Yes.
In the Daily Mail, please.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is a rite of passage.
Yeah.
It's a place where we change from one thing into another, and it needs to be dignified.
Yes. And I know that I told you before, I've heard that within the whale community, so the mammals as opposed to whales, the whale community, it's the females there who are past childbearing age who become the leaders, because they are deemed to have all this experience and knowledge and everything else, and all the younger members of the tribe look up to them. Whereas, of course,
they know where the fish is.
Sorry?
They know where the fish is. When times are scarce, they know where the salmon is.
And that's what it is. Their experience is celebrated because of all they know. Whereas, we get to a certain age and I think, someone is noticing the grey hair or the lines or the extra pounds or whatever it is. We're not being celebrated for our years of experience and learning, which is just such a loss.
But that goes back to, that's not about menopause specifically. It's about being in a female body, because we are valued for the way that we look.
Yeah.
And that is always valued. And we always, I was like, oh, hang on. Did Mary say when she was doing a video? Oh shit, I better go, swearing, sorry. Better go and put on my lipstick, put my earrings on. I was like, oh,
yeah.
Because I'm in that soup as well.
Well, we all are, aren't we, actually?
We're all in that,
I've got my lippy off as well, yeah.
So when any of us don't fit in with the culturally approved appearance, which is white, in your mid-20s, slim, happy, compliant.
Yeah, and
not too loud,
groomed, hugely groomed and everything.
Not too quiet, not too many opinions.
Yeah,
all those things. As soon as we slide out of that norm, then we feel we don't belong. So you can forget about what we know, because but it doesn't matter. What women know is not valued.
Yeah.
Across the board.
No, that is true. Mm. Now, I know as well, I saw on your website somewhere that you had deep gratitude for all that you'd learnt in the experiences that you realised through menopause. Mm. So what sort of thing does that cover?
Well, I had to stop doing what I felt I ought to do and do what I loved instead.
Love it.
Very simple. It was, and that was fine. So that's what arose out of it. And actually what happened was, as I mentioned, I didn't really get to manifest a lot in my summer years. I was quite late. So I had kids in my late 30s and I was 40 when I had my second child. And then I was like, oh, I forgot to have kids. That mission saying, oh my God, I forgot to have children. And oh my God, I forgot to really work on my career properly. So then I was working my arse off to manifest my gifts in the world in my 40s when I was in perimenopause. And so then I burnt out. So I was working, doing family at this time when the natural inclination is to go slower and come in. So it was a road crash, and I was forced. It was really painful. There's no soft soaping it, because I'd spent years, decades forging an identity as a therapist who is professional and knows stuff, and all that kind of nonsense that we do in our professional lives. I've seen this many clients and I'm specializing in all that. I had to let that go for a while at least, and let go so to stop identifying with that outward appearance and to identify with how I was, which is mercurial and contradictory and daft and very serious and all kinds of different things. But that gives me the freedom to follow what excites me. So one of the things I did once I was through that process was I started making pants. So taking people into their internal experience of femininity in their pelvic bowl. So what that might mean. Well, what happened was we opened this sort of jewel box of extraordinary experience of lives lived with abuse and survived, of creative process ever evolving, of just sheer glory. And this is not, we're all lovely goddesses. This was like real life, lived experience with the wounds and the resilience and the survival. And then I took the material from these explorations and made them into pants. And that's the pants of empowerment.
Well, I was wondering what is that?
I know, it's like, what? But who in their right minds would have come up with something as kind of left field as that? And it was only because I stopped and let go of what I felt I should be doing. So people listening to this can go to my website and read these stories of, the big women and little women and determined women and vulnerable, of every kind, and their internal experience, celebrating the internal experience of their life. And I just find that, I think that's magic.
Because I was just going to say, it must be incredible for you to work with these women who come to you, I don't know, they're burnt out or whatever, but they're not happy, and you can give them their pants of empowerment. That must just be incredible.
Yeah, I know. It is. It's a wonderful thing. But I think there's something about, again, it's sort of looping back to what we were speaking about earlier. When your story is really heard and honored, something magical happens.
Yeah. Wow. So I'm going to say, I don't know, is there just one takeaway for someone listening now who is either not physically because of years in their second spring, or they're not feeling second spring, they're just feeling they haven't got their pants of empowerment at all? What's maybe like one piece of advice, knowledge you'd really like them to take away as a result of this talk?
Okay. To take a whole breath in and a whole breath out. And you can, sometimes it helps to put your hands on yourself, to comfort yourself in some way that feels good, to rub your arms, or maybe rub your tummy or your heart. And to really feel in what would be really lovely to do now, or to receive now, or what would be lovely, what would really be a pleasure to receive now. And it might be, you know, our minds often go to the Caribbean holiday, or to ditch the relationship, or, you know, a big change. And if that's what happens, to ask yourself, how can I give myself a tiny piece of this? So if it is the Caribbean holiday, can I step outside and take a breath in the garden or on the street? Or can I find a tree and just touch a tree? Or can I look at my houseplant? You know, that would be a good kind of, because even, you know, even looking at a photograph of a tree gives you the benefit of being in nature. Can I have a cup of tea, and can I ditch social media? Can I ditch my phone and my screens for 5 minutes? And for some of us, that's a challenge.
Right? But I was just thinking as well, how many women don't even allow themselves the luxury of doing what's right for them? I mean, I wonder how many women, if you said to them, you know, what would you really love to do just for you, maybe they don't even know, because they're so busy looking after other people or living to other people's priorities, whether it's a boss or other members of your family or whoever it is.
Yes, thank you for saying that. That's really astute, and I think it's very true. And it's good to remember that this is a practice. So it's not something that we get right. And quite sometimes we might know and not follow through, and that's okay. And sometimes we don't know. Sometimes we're so bloody stressed we have no clue at all. And that's okay too, because just asking, just giving yourself that kindness about, well, what do I need? Is a step, and it doesn't feel like enough, but it's about, the bigger picture is about developing a kindly, compassionate, sweet relationship with ourselves. And that takes practice, because we're not very good at it.
Because I was just thinking, when you say that actually sounds so obvious, but it's quite hard, isn't it, for someone who has always had other people ahead of them in the priority list?
It takes practice.
It's hard.
And look, you can, I mean, the other thing that I would, you only ask for one take. You're getting more than one. You're getting
That's
the
right.
bargain here.
I'll have as many as there are.
The other thing that I love to do, and I think we should all be doing, is looking for great role models.
Yes.
Looking at your friends of all ages, young, old, whatever gender they are, who are able to give themselves a little more, and hang out with them.
True.
Don't hang out with the people who are, or at least don't give your energy to the lie about busyness being.
Absolutely. Is there anyone in the public eye who you think's a great role model?
I have a podcast, which is actually just a big excuse to talk to people, to get people to talk to me. And I got to speak to Angela Farmer, and she is a yoga teacher in her 80s, and she is a brilliant role model because of her vitality and her kindness towards us.
Wow.
So jump over to that podcast on life and inside job, because she is just amazing. And I think the other person who really set me off on this, kind of opened my eyes to the vitality of second spring and second summer, is Penny Simkin. I don't know if you.
I don't know who she is. No.
She is a doula and an educator of doulas who specialises in survivors of sexual abuse.
Right.
How to help them to birth safely. And she is an activist, and she has this combination of vitality, a real seriousness of purpose, but with a naughtiness and a delicious humor, you know, a lightness and a playfulness as well. So there's something about that, and a humility and a lack of pomposity.
Okay, so that's good. Yeah,
I see that very often, more often in women than I do in men. You know, it's without ego.
Yeah.
Or they hold a different kind of ego, and that. So yeah, definitely Penny Simkin and Angela Farmer, and they're both in their mid to late 80s.
Wonderful. You see, I love the idea of there being other ladies of that age group, that they continue to spring and bloom and everything else as they get into their 80s, which is marvelous.
Yeah. Because there's always more stuff to learn. And I have a Pinterest board of all these amazing women.
So for someone listening in who is very keen on learning about second spring or whatever it is they want to learn about, what's the best place for them to go to have access to all these various things that you're offering?
Okay, if you pop over to my website, which is katecodrington.co.uk, it's rammed full of stuff.
Right, and from memory, you've got a lot there, which is also, there's a lot of freebies there as well.
Yeah, there's a huge amount of resources that you can download for free, and my first suggestion is to take rest. So there's a lot of yoga nidra, which is like the first class, high quality rest meditation, which is just fabulous. And there's lots of more active things to do stuff, but first we have to rest and go inwards.
Yeah, so fantastic. So thank you, Kate. So I'm going to remind people listening in, sign in. The details will be below so that you get access to all 5 talks. I'm also going to put a link to Kate's website below so that you can go in and have a look. But Kate, thank you. I've just loved the whole idea about the second spring, the second summer, which so fits in with the view I've got that actually there's a lot ahead of you.
There's so much to look forward to.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been such a positive talk. So thank you so much, Kate.
Thank you for the opportunity, Mary.
You're welcome.